Dr. Kuehl, could you first of all tell me what have been the key developments over the past year that you've noticed in the cyber domain?
I don't know that. I think the biggest thing that has happened in the past year are two things, and they're not technological. They're organizational and policy related. One is that in both the United States and in the UK, both countries last year published new national security strategies. And in both of those security strategies, the importance of the role of cyber was highlighted and emphasized. And so we're realizing and emphasizing in a very, very public and strategic manner the importance of cyberspace to how we do national security in a very broad sense. And then secondly, and this is an organizational issue, was the creation in the United States of U.S. Cyber Command. Mm-hmm. And so those are the two biggest things that in my mind happened last year.
So U.S. Cyber Command is now up and running?
U.S. Cyber Command is up and running, that's right. And each one of our four armed services, Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, have created cyber-specific entities. Fleet Cyber Command and 10th Fleet, Marine Forces Cyber, Army Cyber Command, and the Air Force's 24th Air Force were stood up, literally all of them last year, to be their services component of or contribution to U.S. Cyber Command.
I see. Okay. In a way, I expected you to say that Stuxnet would somehow be one of the biggest developments. Is that an overstatement?
No, it wouldn't be. It's a very interesting development. Stuxnet is the technical issue of interest du jour all over the world. Mm-hmm. And the way it's been described to me by technical professionals, very interestingly, they've described it as, imagine the entire water supply for the city of London being poisoned, and everyone drinks of it, and one person dies because it was targeted against that person's DNA. And in that sense, they've described Stuxnet as some piece of very, very specific and detailed and precise programming that, even though it has been seen or discovered all over the world, went after a couple very, very specific kinds of capabilities. And so it raises the specter or the bar, perhaps, of the potential next step in the war-fighting development or weaponization of cyberspace.
So it set its own precedent by which our security systems and the way we explore our own infrastructure has to adapt. Mm-hmm. Are we keeping up with that threat, or is this a case of, well, something is perhaps out there now that can be utilized against us, and are we out of our depth, or are we able to
I think
catch up?
What we're seeing is, this isn't one of the developments in the past year, it's been one of the developments of the past 10 years, past decade, is that our societies in the United States, Canada, Western Europe, large parts of Asia, have become increasingly reliant upon, dependent upon cyber capabilities for almost everything we do, for transportation, for money, for the delivery of energy, for telecommunications, et cetera, et cetera. Those things are all cyber-based and controlled. Whenever you become that dependent upon something, you have a de facto vulnerability. And so that's one of the things that many of us have been talking about for quite a while, is that as we become more dependent upon these kinds of systems, there are both opportunities and vulnerabilities there. There are opportunities in terms of speed, in lower cost, more efficient, in many cases more reliable, etc. But there's also the vulnerability that if someone acts against them, we may not have a viable or fast means of replacing or recovering from that. And I don't know how far along the line we are in terms of protecting those capabilities and systems as compared to the potential to act against them.
Okay. But for a long time you're saying it's not been a secret that the critical infrastructure, our national critical infrastructure, has been, let's say, the big bullseye. in that sense, has there been much interoperation between governments and militaries to act in accordance with, let's say, telecoms networks or transport networks or energy plants and that sort of thing, private industry, to try to come to some sort of level of security that we could perhaps at least palm off the threat for a while, if not completely.
In some ways, the most important word that we have been using in this development, and it's 10 years plus old, is the P word, partnership. Starting with the partnership within government, military and government. Next, the partnership of the military and government and the private sector in our countries. Then there's the partnerships between military to military internationally, between government to government internationally, between private sector to private sector internationally. And so there's a layer there of partnerships that we have been trying to build and establish over the past decade plus. We've made a lot of progress in this area. There's a lot more that needs to be done. And one of the key problems is that who are the owners and the operators of these critical infrastructures? And the answer is not the military and not the government. It's the private sector. And so how do you link with them, and how do you get the various pieces of the private sector to view this through a broader lens than their own business-specific soda straw? A fly has 100 eyes. Well, that only works if there's something back there that coordinates all the eyes. If something doesn't coordinate the eyes, then you have 100 different views of the world. That's, in many ways, where we are in the business world with this, in the private sector, is the 100 different eyes looking at it. It's the role, it is a role of government to provide some of the integration into a common picture. And that has been, we've been making progress on that. There's a lot farther to go.
Is it fair to say that fora such as these are helping to build that bridge and make that progress?
I made a joke when I chaired this conference last year. This is the third year in a row I've chaired this conference. And I like this conference. I'll tell you about that in a minute. That you could spend your entire, if you didn't have a day job, you could spend your entire year attending 2 cyber conferences all around the world and never have to go home to get a clean change of clothes. That's an example of how important this has become, and we're realizing it. This conference in particular, I really like this because it brings together a tremendous diversity of attendees and speakers from within the militaries. Many of the NATO militaries are represented here, of the governments, and of the private sectors as well. And so it's an important piece of the process of building those partnerships. And so that's one of the reasons why I think this is this conference in particular has been so successful. It's grown every single year, and the impact that it's having.
You mentioned the fact that there's various nations coming together and discussing. One of the voices, I think, one of the critical voices has been that the UK, for instance, shouldn't be modelling its cybersecurity strategy or its efforts to build a cyber agency with those of the US. It should be looking just internally, looking to build what it has already, so within its own defence programs and so on. Is that the right approach to take, or should there be more interaction?
Oh, I think both. I think nations have to develop their own individual solutions because every society, every economy and political system is different, and so it has to be unique to each country. Having said that, that does not rule out the ability to have a common approach or at the strategic level that crosses national borders and boundaries, and I think that is happening as well.
Of course, the cyber domain does cross boundaries, so there really, I suppose, can't be that differentiation altogether. But that's very, very interesting. Thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.